Hi everyone, my name is Marietta, and you might know me as a Python core developer. I contribute to open source projects, and I'm also an open source project maintainer. I've contributed and maintained several projects, not just the CPython. What I want to do today is just to share a little bit of how I approach answering or answering issues on GitHub related to open source projects that I'm maintaining. Just to walk you through of the how just the whole process, just so you have an idea of what it's like as a maintainer or even just as contributor to a project. It's not always about writing or creating pull requests. A lot of time it's a little bit of investigation and just answering questions that people have. So let's start. Today I'm tackling just one issue that is on the Gidgethub project. Let me share my screen. This is the issue that came recently to the Gidgethub project. When I first I thought I'll share, like, when I first received the notification about this, I received something in my inbox that says there's a new ticket in the Gidgethub project saying unable to obtain access token via GitHub Enterprise. When I saw that email, I felt like, oh no, I made a mistake. I broke something, because this is something that I implemented, and this is not the first time we got issues with the GitHub Enterprise. Basically, I personally don't have access to GitHub Enterprise. I've been using just the public GitHub, the open source projects. I've never tested any of the GitHub features with GitHub Enterprise, and this is not the first time we got problem with it. So I haven't been looking into this ticket because I felt like it was stressful. However, I mean, it's Monday now. I got a pretty restful weekend, so I feel like I'm ready to look into this issue, and hopefully I can figure it out. So just to share the issue here, so the user, I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'm sorry about that. They said that they could not use. They're getting an error when calling the get installation access token and getting a bad request response from the GitHub API endpoint. So this is basically the 400 error. But he said that if he used the get JWT function himself and use something like Postman, then it will work. So he said he could just create the post request to the access token endpoint and it will work for him. However, if he used the built-in get installation access token, which is a function provided by Gidgethub library, he would get the 400 request error. And he shared his complete code of that he said didn't work. So he's trying to figure out, like, what's going on here. What is that? Was he not doing it the right way or something? And again, I don't know. It works for me. It works for me when I use it on just a regular GitHub, not an enterprise. And of course, since I implemented this, I'm the only one who knows how it really works. So I got pinged about it. So let's take a look. My first thought is that, the difference with GitHub Enterprise, it has a different endpoint than GitHub, than the regular GitHub. If I'm not using the Enterprise, the URLs, the GitHub API endpoints will not look like this. It will look like api.github.com, something like that. And that was one of the problems we found earlier, is that Gidgethub initially did not support enterprise endpoint. So we introduced the base URL parameters when calling GitHub APIs, which allows enterprise users to put in their own custom API endpoints. So my first thought of this is that maybe somehow we weren't passing the base URL when we're trying to call the get installation access token method. So I'm just going to look at the code now to see whether we are respecting the URL at all. So I'm going to go to the code base. Let's see, GitHub. It should be in the apps. This is where we implemented the get JWT. Okay, no, this is where the get installation access token is being written. We got the access token URL, and we're calling the GitHub API post coroutine here. And basically this thing, let's go there and see. In the post coroutine here, we are calling the make request, which I believe that it is already taking into consideration the base URL. So it's not about whether this function, so I know that it is using the right base URL. So it's a different problem. So let's go back. Another thing that came to my mind is that maybe somehow the access token URL is different in the Enterprise edition. So I want to look at, okay, this is the documentation that I used when implementing this in the first place. I was looking at the free version. So let's go there. Okay, right, this is the github.com documentation on how to create installation access token. That's the endpoint apps installation access token. That's the same, that's matching. So maybe I want to find out whether this endpoint is the same in the Enterprise edition, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, I guess I should make this bigger so you all can read it. So if I go to the top of the documentation, it looks like there are different documentation depending on which enterprise server version. I'm going to try with the Enterprise v3. I don't know if they mentioned what is their server version. They didn't say anything. Okay, let's look at Enterprise server v3 and look at creating installation access token. I guess this is the one. The URL looks the same. You must use a JWT, but maybe the parameters are different. I don't know. I'm going to compare both documentation. Let's do this. This is the github.com documentation, and this is the enterprise documentation. Where was that? Create an installation access token. All right, let's compare. Where is that? Oops, I got the wrong one. Create. All right, let's compare the documentation. The endpoint looks the same. What about the parameters? It's using the same thing. Application, the header's the same. Installation ID, repositories, permissions. I'm not sure. They all look the same. Let's see. Okay, the documentation looks the same. So now I'm not sure. Let's see how we actually call. It. We get the access. We got the URL. We're passing in. We're making a post request to the URL. We're not passing in any data. We're passing in the JWT token. Okay, I do notice that the accept header is different than what's documented here. Okay, it's possible that when I first implemented this, at that time I needed to pass in this header instead of what's being documented here, which is the application /vind.github.v3 plus JSON. So this might have changed after I first implemented it, but I guess in the enterprise version that accept header is probably not recognized. So I think if I just change the code to use this header, it will work for both the enterprise and for everybody else. I'm just going to see whether this is the same for the earlier version of the enterprise server. Create installation access tokens. Okay, it uses the same header, installation ID, repositories, permission, they all look the same, the API endpoints the same. Going to try one more documentation. This will be discontinued soon. Okay. Alright, yeah, I guess back then this API is under preview, and I guess that's why. Yeah, so look at that. This is the preview header that I have put in here, and I guess that's the header I had to pass on earlier, but now it's no longer a preview. So I guess that's the answer. So let's write down. I found out that, or how do I phrase this? It looks like the create installation access token is no longer a preview. When it was implemented initially, I had to pass in this header, accept header, but looking at more recent documentation at github.com, and the document, the enterprise, the documentation for GitHub Enterprise Server v3 this endpoint is no longer under preview, and that we should pass in the what's the correct header instead. So I will also add the permalink here. So to fix this I would need to adjust the code such that it passes the correct header, accept header correctly. Actually, I will also ask Zachary. Okay. I'm assuming that you are using GitHub Enterprise Server v. What's the reason? 2 or 3 or v3. And I will also clarify that in if I look at the documentation for GitHub Enterprise Server v221, it still says to use the preview header. Okay, let's let's review this. Okay, this looks like it's out of place. I'm going to move that code snippet to somewhere else. Maybe here. Okay. So I posted my reply. Maybe I need to convert this to an issue. No, that's not the right place. Okay. How do I convert this to an issue? It's not possible to convert into an issue. So I think this is an actual issue, but I don't know how to convert it back into an issue. Anyway, I will work on the PR. For it. Okay. Yeah, that's or should I have added it as an answer here? I'm not sure. I'm new to the GitHub discussions. Anyway, at least now I answered an issue. I know what to do there, although I don't actually have time to implement it right now. Maybe I'll try to find time tomorrow. But I hope that I gave you a little overview of how it works. What do I do as a maintainer? It's not always writing code. It's also about responding to issues. And you don't always have to have, you don't always have to have a text editor open. Like I was able to solve this just by reading documentation. I didn't even clone the repo yet. You didn't see me opening my IDE, just by going through documentation, looking at the code on GitHub, which is great. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. If you appreciate my work, I am hoping to do more of these kind of videos to share with you, like my open source contribution and my open source work. If you appreciate my work, please consider sponsoring me on GitHub. Thank you so much. See you next time.